Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sedro Woolley Rotary Club, the greatest Rotary Club in the, thank you. And my little quote for the day, 7 rules of life, smile. It's number 1, it always works out in the end. 2, be kind. You have the power to make people feel good. 3, don't give up. If it doesn't work the first time, find another way. 4, don't compare. Everyone's on a different journey. 5, avoid negativity. Avoid negativity, thoughts, situations, and people. 6, make peace with your past. Focus on being present and creating a better future. And 7, take care of your mind and body. One struggles to survive without the other. With that, invocation, Chief Dan.
Okay, here. Dear Jesus, thank you for this food today. Thank you. Please bless this food. Thank you for this gathering of this Rotary, great group here. And please keep everybody healthy. I'm sure hoping for some nice weather here shortly and get through this wonderful rain that you provide, but we want some sun. So thank you, Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Please join me in the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Today's song will be.
I don't know when the last time the roof of the Mariner Stadium or whatever it's called now is off, but I'm sure it's on now. So if we take ourselves out to the ball game, we'll probably get wet, but let's take ourselves out to the ball game. Anybody knows how that starts? Take me out to the ball game.
Take me out to the crowd. Phoenix and fractured chest. I don't care if I ever get touched. Root for the Mariners. They don't mean it's a shame. It's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Thank you, Ken. Dan. Do we have any visiting Rotarians with us today?
Fellow Rotarians, we have Kimmy from the Fidalgo Island Rotary here to see our speaker. So welcome, Kim.
Hi, Kim. Thank you. Any other visiting Rotarians? Do you have any guests of Rotarians? No guests, okay. Okay, welcome, Kim. And on to a little club business. First of all, I was going to call on Ellen about the installation that is scheduled for July 1st. Keep that on your calendar. It's a Friday night. It should be a great event. I think it's going to be here. I don't have any of the details other than the date. So,
Hey, Rich, I do have a sign up. Ellen dropped off. Ellen couldn't be here for Rotary this afternoon, and but she did drop off a sign-up sheet, so I'm going to pass it around. If for yourself and a guest, if you want to sign up, she's going to pick it up after Rotary. She's got a luncheon over here at the Senior Center, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Ken. The second item that I had was that I sent an email out on summer concert series. Chris Rothenbuehler needs help in various areas on that. And so if you could, I don't see Chris here. Oh, she is. Can she speak? Chris, do you have anything to say? Okay. Okay. Okay, well, I will leave it at that and encourage you to contact Chris if you can help out in any manner whatsoever. So, and finally, a reminder that the Helping Hands Food Bank is having their annual fundraiser on June 25th at the Museum of Flight. You should have received an email with the details of that. So let's support the Museum of Flight and help them reach their goal in fundraising for this year. So that's on June 25th. Robert Gates will be speaking, so it should be a great program. Now, I will call on Brock for seems like the 50th week in a row, but he promised only 4 minutes.
Yeah, right. But I'll try my best. So, as you know, the Sedro Woolley Foot Race is coming up on July the 4th, right? Everybody knows that. It's a Monday this year. So we're going to start, we always start about a month earlier to try to get people on their street corners and other activities. So it'll take a few minutes to go over that. So first, though, a couple of changes. Everything, all registration is going to be done online this year. There's going to be no written forms out there whatsoever, right, Kyle? Okay. All right, and we're also going to do, people can come the day before to actually pick up their, basically do their check-in, get their shirts if they've ordered in advance. So we're going to do that which is Sunday evening from 4 to 6 down at the high school gym. So that's going to be advertised as well. So we probably need a few people to be able to help out on that date to be down at the high school. So instead of just everybody being at the high school gym in the morning on the 4th, we needed just a couple of people down there on the 3rd as well from 4 to 6. So think about that. Look at that, Daryl Heisler already going to do that. Stevie Huggins as well. So that'll cover it, and even Phil Brockman now. Okay, excellent. So Mike Schweiger, is Mike here? Okay, he's always in charge of opening up the gym and everything for us, especially on the 4th. So he needs to be there at 6:45. Please do, thank you. Steve and Les Huggins are always in charge of the parking signs. So Les, do you know where those parking signs are at? Are you sure? You have no clue, do you? They're hidden somewhere in your barn somewhere. You'll find them. He finds them every year. On July 3rd, like about 6 o'clock at night, he finds them. So anyway, let's see who can help out with registration on the 4th here. So how about Carl Garrison? Carl? You gonna? Yeah? Okay, you're sounding like Mike Janicki more and more every year, so. Yes, but every year he has said he was going to run, and then it's his knee or something or whatever, so. Yeah, it's you can actually do both there, Carl. Yep. All right, thanks. Chris Johnson. Is he here? How about Eric R. Johnson? He's going to be there. All right. Bill McCann. Registration? Great, thank you. Daryl, you're going to be there on the 4th as well? All right, Mark Nielsen. Keith Wagner. Julia Johnson. All right. Sheena Burns. No? Yulia? She going to be there? Yeah. You want somebody else to do that, right? Okay. Becky Skindry and Samantha Stormont. All right. John Janicki, where's John at? He's got the scaffolding for the start finish line. He's going to be finding that on the 4th or the 3rd too. So, all right. This year, Charlie Bush is going to be basically setting up the race course and doing on the water. So we have got that already arranged. Sue Stradoff is donating all the water again this year, so she'll be delivering it down to Limley Chapel that sometime the week before. So I'll be sure to go ask Doug if it's okay to do that. Is that right? Okay, let's go quickly to the street locations. So Metcalf and Warner was Carl DeYoung last year. Carl, you going to do that? July 4th. You can show up on July 1st if you want, direct traffic, but that's, well, that's right. Okay. State and Metcalf, Travis Heisman and Nick Van Jarsveld. Either one here, all right. Metcalf and Ferry, John Janicki. Ferry and Murdoch, Mike Janicki. You sure he's got that? All right. Ferry and Puget, Rich Wyrick. Have I used my 4 minutes yet? I think I have. What's that? Anyways, Ferry and Reed, Dave Bricka. Ferry and Haynes, Tim Howland. Ferry and Central, Don Olmsted. Ferry and Ball, Pat Eason. Ferry and Township, Dan Sims. Nobody's here, right? Okay. What's that? Did you say yes? Okay. Well, I was looking down. Don't speak up there, Tim. All right. Let's see. Township and State was Stephanie Bachmeyer. Mark Venn as well. State and 10th, Sandra Jensen. State and 11th, Charlie Jensen. State Minkler Railroad, John Schmidt. Hohen and Fruitdale, Brian Stiles. Fruitdale and River, we don't need that. River and Township, Eric Johnson and Benjamin Johnson. And you want to go back and get flipped off again? Really? Okay. You missed it? Okay. I think you went off somewhere on a trip or something. Could have been. Okay, we'll put you there. Great. Township and Jennings, Adrian Santangelo. Township and Marshall, David Mickelson. Township and Alexander, Rod Hall. Township and Sterling, Don Ostrom. Okay, Township and Fidalgo, Steve Scrindy. Township and Jameson, Eric R. and Julia. So you kind of did double duty there, all right? Township and Bennett, Phil Brockman. Township and Nelson, Carrie Story. What's that? She can do it? Okay, Township and Talcott, Keith Sorsted. By the way, he's going to do the national anthem, even though he's flying in from England, I think, like 2 days before. So we may need to get a kind of a plan B on that. And Ken, you're not going to be asked, okay, to sing the national anthem, okay? No, we want people to come back next year. Township and Warner, Tessa Ross. Okay, that's all I got for now. We'll do this again next week.
Okay, thank you. Tim Howland has an announcement.
So over at the high school, they have the Career Technical Education Department, and in their ag department, they use the greenhouse to produce plants. So the kids plant all of these guys and they monitor their growth through the school year. And then at the end of the year, they're all for sale. So they're all set up here with a price for each type that's in there. And then if you just look in the back of the pickup truck out there, leave some money on the table, grab what you want, and support the CTE department. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good cause. They do a great job. So buy some of those plants. With that, let's spin the wheel of fortune.
Good. $69.
Hey,
69.
That's me.
What do you want? Good deal. 5-2, 52, 5-2. Forty-four, 4-4, 44. But not least, 6-8, 68.
That it? Sergeant at Arms. Okay, most of us know that we raise this money to pay for our events, such as our installation coming up. I checked with Steve and we have plenty of money, so I don't have to be too harsh. I'm going to be doing this week and 2 weeks from now, and Carl has it again next week. Is that right? What I'm going to do is grant immunity to all of you for my 2 weeks if you contribute $5. I'm going to fine you a hell of a lot more if you don't. So everybody contribute $5. And happy bucks. Anybody happy?
I've got $50 happy dollars. I got a lot to be happy for, and it all involves my kids. May 21st, my second daughter, Emily, gave us a grandson. Callum Hunter Alexander Funston was born on the 21st. Trying to think the specifics, 7 pounds, 13 inches, 20 inches long. Everybody's healthy. Exactly 8 days later, we had a U-Haul packed with them and all their belongings, 2 dogs, a cat, 2 Teslas, a U-Haul, made the drive up from Reno and got here in a couple of days. Secondly, my son Michael and his fiancee Rachel were here all last week from Fort Bragg, and we got to spend a wonderful week with them. And then finally, my youngest Maddie is graduating, well, she graduates again from Western Washington University with her second degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So pretty happy.
I just got a quick 10. Last night, Dan got sworn in as the chief. So I guess he's the chief-elect until August 31st, and then everything is his fault. I should just give him this $10 bill just in case. But on a serious note, city picked the best guy to take over for me. He's going to do great. He doesn't have a choice at this point because I've thrown him down, but he is a good option, and he's already got a good number 2 chosen. We are promoting another sergeant here. That sergeant was in your office the other day, Rich, Zach Carroll. So we got great things on our horizon, and a lot of good things are happening for us. So you guys can give Dan a hand. I'd appreciate it.
I got some happy 10. This is for basically our 7th grade girls basketball team. We got some good things coming up here when they reach high school. So we're already put them in the summer league for high school summer league, and they won their first game. So as 7th graders, giving up a lot of size, Won the first game, lost the second game, but they're working hard, playing tough. Love it.
I didn't ask anybody to contribute for their birthdays and anniversaries. The $5 covers that. Unless Carl has a different idea next week. That's up to him.
Are we good to go? Back to you, Mr. Oh, we got more.
I thought we were done. That's all right. Happy Five. We gave out almost $2 million in scholarships last night. So it was awesome to have a lot of community partners. Thank you to the community partners for giving out those scholarships and awarding our awesome students and graduates. And then also just an announcement that tonight we're doing a graduation parade. So come out to, downtown in Metcalf and support our graduates as we celebrate them.
What time's that parade at, Eric? Parade's at 6:30.
All right, happy 210s. Two announcements. My wife and I are happy grandparents to our first grandchild, born Elliot, and he 7.5 pounds, 21 inches as a keeper, according to my crab chart. And we went down to Berkeley for that, and we were so blessed to have that. And then just came back from 20 days, 9 countries of seeing Scandinavia and the Baltic and visiting with relatives. But it sure is good to be home.
Any more happy bucks? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Carl to introduce our speaker.
Well, every once in a while, you find something to get excited about, and Don Ostrom gave me a copy of a book to read. Well, he didn't give it to me, I bought it. Told me about it. And I started reading it, and I was immediately gripped by all of the adventuresome of Alaska. So the author here, Jerry Tilley, is with us today, and he's with his daughter. Kathy is here to join us. And Kim came over from Anacortes to see him speak as well. So after reading about half of this book, I realized that superheroes don't always wear capes. The struggles and trials and tribulations, as well as the successes of fishing and crabbing in Alaska, are on full display in this book, Ice and Fire. Please welcome Jerry Tilley.
Well, this is going to be my first to tell somebody about anything I did, because I always wrote about it. It's a lot easier writing about it than talking about it. So to start off with, I was born back in the Depression when my dad was a crab fisherman in Tokeland, Washington. And he was getting 25 cents a dozen for the crab. But there was nobody buying crab in the Depression. So went off and traveled around doing other things. So anyway, I ended up in Alaska and doing things that most people didn't want to do. And the opportunities, if anybody had any ambition, you could get a job no matter what, but all you had to do was just work at it. And I always told anybody that if you want a job, superintendent, whatever, work for it and you'll get it. It's automatic in Alaska, because in Alaska in the summertime, it's busy, busy, busy. Wintertime, they close the door and everybody goes south. And this was back many years ago. Like I went to Alaska in the 50s, and in the end of September, there was nothing left to do. So everybody just left because it was only salmon that they were doing. They wasn't doing any crab or anything like that. So anyway, I just decided that I think I'll just go up there and stay there. So I got a job building a shrimp cannery in Wrangell, Alaska. And it was the first automated shrimp cannery in the state of Alaska. And I built the cannery and designed all the equipment and built it myself. Ran it for 4 years and then went to Kodiak, Alaska, and because another opportunity arose. So I ended up in Kodiak and I started diving. So a friend of mine was a diver and I was kind of his tender. And I thought, I think I'll try that. So I ordered some tanks and a suit. When I got there, I borrowed a skiff and I went out and jumped overboard. Of course, I didn't know anything about how to get back in the skiff. But when you have double 50 tanks and you want to put them in a skiff, when you push up, they don't go up, you go down. So a lot of these things you have to figure out for yourself. And which I finally did, but it took a while. So there was you've probably heard of the Kalakala, which was a ferry boat that ran between Seattle and Bremerton many years ago. I actually rode that going to work in Bremerton. But anyway, it was a shrimp processing plant in Gibson Cove in Kodiak Island. And I was getting ready to leave Kodiak and he said, would you come down here and check out this pipeline? And I said, call Willie. He's the one that installed it. I'll back up a little bit here. They were going to install a pipeline to take all the waste and pump it 1,500 feet out into the current so the current would take the shells away. And so the engineer was telling us about it. I asked him, what are you going to use for saddles on the pipe? And he said, it's a steel pipe. And I thought, well, I guess that's enough questions for him because if he doesn't know it, but air in the pipe floats. Anyway, what happened was when they pump all the waste down into the tank and the tank gets to the bottom, it pumps air. The air goes into the pipes and the pipes get up and they go like this all over. And then the flanges break off and then the pipes go this way and that way, which is what happened because they didn't put saddles on the pipe. So he wanted me to do it and I was leaving in 5 days, 6 days. And I said, okay, I'll go look and see what the problem is. So I went down and I got 2 lengths of pipe out and there was no pipe. So the pipe, they come up like a sea serpent. And you can see where it went all across the bottom and it broke up in pieces and the pieces went everywhere. So I was supposed to leave and he said, you got to fix this pipe. And I said, call Willie. Well, Willie's gone because Willie got $40,000 to install the pipe. Anyway, I went down and got the saddles made by somebody else. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So I did it. I put in 1,500 foot of 40-inch steel pipe, 10-inch pipe in 5 days. And which was pretty much impossible because when I told him it would take me 5 days, he said, you know, you're not a young man. You know, you can't do that. I said, yeah, okay. So anyway, I did it. So the Kalakala got back in business again, and then I left and went did another job. So anyway, I'm in Kodiak and I get a call, and it's the Coast Guard, and they say there's a Japanese ship offshore, 30 miles out, dead in the water, and they got the net and the wheel, and they need a diver. I said, okay. So they said they got a helicopter warming up in Kodiak. So I went down, got on the helicopter. And it was just probably a rare day. There was no wind, perfect for flying anywhere. So anyway, we go out looking for this boat and it's dead in the water. So there's other fishing boats in the area, but they're moving around. So we finally find this Japanese trawler. And so we're hovering over it to make sure it was it. And everybody was, their mouth was wide open, the whole crew. So anyway, we went out about 30 yards and I got on the outside of the runner and jumped overboard. It's 35 miles offshore. So, you know, there's no land in sight. And then you got to figure out how you're going to get back because the helicopter leaves and the helicopter can't pick you out of the water. So anyway, I got down underneath the boat, unwrapped the net from the wheel, and they had to haul me up the stern ramp, and then he had to go in the Coast Guard within 12 miles. Coast Guard came out, picked me up. I jump overboard and swim out the other boat. And then that got to be a regular thing. So when they found out that they had somebody that was crazy enough to go out there and jump out of a helicopter and take the net out of the wheel, I got a lot of calls. And that's probably the most exciting thing that I did. And other jobs were one where they had a boat had rolled over. I was building a processing system on a ship in Old Harbor on Kodiak Island. And they called my diving partner from Aleutian Divers, and they flew out in a helicopter and landed on this little dock and said, we got a job out west. And he brought all my diving gear. So we flew out there, and there was a boat that was hauling equipment to a construction site in Cold Bay. And the boat was an LST. If you know what an LST is, it's got a high sides on it and a ramp in the front that drops down so everybody can drive off. If the boat's upside down, just kind of think of it as a bathtub, because once it's upside down, there's no way out you can get out of it. What happened was the boat had rolled over, and I think they got in a heavy swell. They had 2 D8 cats on board, chained down, but I think the cats must have went sideways, got over to the side of the boat, which caused it to ship over, turn over, which I think is, that's what I think. Anyway, they said we went out and we landed on the other barge. There was a whole flotilla of boats that was going out to this construction job. So we landed on there, went down and talked to the people. They said, well, the boat started to roll and we just got out, but one of the guys said, I have to go get my guitar. And he went back in and the boat rolled over. So they wanted us to go out and see if he was in an air bubble or something in the ship. So anyway, we got in a helicopter and flew out, jumped overboard, and we were about a mile offshore, and you could see the bow of the boat was about that angle, and it was kind of bouncing up and down in the swell. So we had to go down underneath it, go inside of the cabins, crawl through the cabins, swim through the cabins, and see if we could find a body and or a person. Well, we couldn't find it. There was nothing in there and that we could see. And the boat just kept this up and down. And I said, you know, we got to get out of here. So anyway, we went out on the outside and we're like a mile offshore and the helicopter's way over there on the bank. So we had to swim a mile in the gear. And it's a lot easier swimming underwater than it is on top of the water when you got tanks and everything. So we ran underwater until we ran out of air. Then we got up and got on we got to the bank where the helicopter was at, but getting up there was a real struggle after you just swam a mile. And so anyway, went from that project, and I have so many projects and jobs that sometimes I have to go back and see where I'm at. Now, I got to go around the world a few times, and because I designed processing systems for ships and shore plants and that sort of thing for any kind of fishery product. So I got to travel a lot. And I know I met one guy that was at the Canary Islands. And he said, do you know that the Canary Islands, there are no canaries on Canary Island? And the Virgin Islands, there's no canaries there either. So this guy was just full of fun. Anyway, so Kodiak, it's wintertime. It has a reservoir, which is up on the hill. And when it gets really cold, you get the ice and it keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And before the shrimp canneries got into town, they didn't use an awful lot of water. So when the canneries got into town and the shrimp machine will suck up 1,000 gallons of water an hour, then the reservoir gets kind of low. So what had happened was the reservoir ice gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And of course, the water level gets lower and lower, and that's why the ice gets thicker. So anyway, there's a little stream that feeds in there, and the little icicles hanging down underneath the ice underwater got rolled up and kind of roll around underneath. We didn't know that at the time. So anyway, I got a call and they wanted me to dive down under the ice to find out what was wrong with the water system because Kodiak had run out of water. And they had a 16-inch pipe, about yay big, this about 1.5 feet off of the bottom of the lake or the reservoir. So anyway, they'd cut a big hole in the ice, and my truck, I drove out on the ice and got out of my truck, put on my regulator tanks, jumped in the ice. I got down there about maybe 10 feet and regulator froze up. And regulator freezes up, it opens up, and you got 2,500 pounds of air going in your mouth. And so I come up and get another regulator and warm that one up, and same thing happened again. This problem is when I dive, I program myself to breathe every 30 seconds. So I only breathe 2 breaths a minute. By doing that, there wasn't enough warm air going into the regulator to keep it open. So I just had to breathe faster, and I finally figured that out. I got down the bottom, I found this pipe, and here's this great big ball of ice over the top of the pipe. So it got down so far because the ice got so thick that as soon as it got over that section, it just sucked it right down on top of the pipe, and that was it. There was no water. So I took my knife out and I chopped a little bit of a hole in the side of it. And the suction was so great, it was sucking the mud right off the bottom, 16 inches down. And you could feel it, you know, and if you put your hand, it'd suck your hand right in there. So I thought, this is not good. So I have to go figure something out. So I went back up again. The skis expander Maroff is about 6 foot across this way and about 6 foot high. And he reached down and grabs my regulator, just picks me up and sets me on the ice. And of course, ice, the suit freezes as soon as you stand out at the side of fresh water. So anyway, I said, this is a problem. There's a great big ice ball down there. And I said, the only way to get it off is to break it up. So what you have to do is skeezix, you hang onto this line. I'm going to tie the line around me. And when I give one pull on this line, you start hauling. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down there and try to kick that ball of ice off of that pipe. And when I do that, when I kick, I'm going to pull and then start hauling. Okay, got it. Anyway, I go down there, lay down on my back, put my foot up there and kick that ball of ice. And it was all icicles together. So it wasn't like a solid ball of ice. And as soon as I kicked it, it just kind of exploded. And I exploded. And I swear to God, he's tied that line on my truck and took off with it. I came out of that hole doing about 10 knots. He just picked me up and set me on the ice. So then he drove down and checked out the water, and Kodiak finally had water. So I just said to make a little mark in my book. So then after the tidal wave, I wrote out all the tidal waves on a boat. Go ahead.
How close to you getting sucked into the pipe?
Well, if I'd still be there. I mean, I can't believe the suction on that pipe. But anyway, that's after the tidal wave, which I wrote out on a boat, which is in the book. That's a story in itself. But they had went out and bought ferry boats because all the canneries were kind of washed out to sea. So they get the ferry boats in, and the ferry boats had to be set up on a grid. So the engineers figured out how high the grid is going to be. So you got all these pilings, and then you got a cap across the top of them. The ferry boat has to come up, slide over, and sit on top of it. And sometimes you don't have a lot of clearance. In this particular case, we got it down there, and we had to do it at night because that was the highest tide. And we tried to get it on, and it wouldn't go. So we had about this much, 1 inch more, and we couldn't make it. And you can't get half of it on there because there's 2 runners on the bottom of the ferry called skags. So one's down on each side of the keel. And then you got struts that run from the keel up to these skags to hold them in place so they don't wobble. So anyway, we got it back off, had to wait till the next tide. And we had to figure out a way to get the boat up higher. So we had them pump all the water off the ferry. And we got some, I think they're gas bags they used to haul, to put it on a flatbed truck. You've probably seen them, rubber containers. They're about 20 feet long. And so we decided to get some of those and put them underneath to give it more lift so we could get it on the grid. So we had to, these things are not light, they're pretty heavy. You're getting all the air out of them so we can sink them and then slide them between these struts so that we can lift the boat up. So we had a boat on the other end of the ferry, and he had a big hydraulic winch, and he was the one that was going to hook on there. We were going to pull them through the skags, through the gussets like this. And so anyway, I said, okay, you stand on the deck and I'll go down and push the bags through the struts. And so I was pushing the bags through the struts and they were moving slow, and I had a tag line in my hand. And so I was rolling this in, and it had a pipe that ran the full length of the rubber bag. And as it was going through the struts, the pipe rolled over. As I was pushing it in, it got my arm and was pulling my arm out of my shoulder. And so I rolled over and I grabbed that tag line and jerked that tag line, and it stopped. But I couldn't get my arm out. So anyway, pretty soon Parker comes down and looks at me, sees the problem. And, I tell him that I need some air. So we had to go get a tank, brought a tank down, changed tanks. And he's going to turn the boat around, get it to the other end of the ferry, hook onto the bag, pull the bag backwards to get me out. So anyway, my arm was going numb and tingling, and I figured that it was probably going to die right there on the spot. So it was probably an hour, maybe more, before they got everything rigged up and come back, hooked onto that bag, and started pulling it backwards. And then it stopped. And I'm thinking, okay, now what? I mean, this has gone on too long. So anyway, he comes down to make sure that everything is okay. And I said, yeah, it's okay. Let's get out of here. So anyway, they finally pulled the bag out enough. So I got my arm out, got to the surface, and everybody cheered. And so did I. That was kind of a hairy job there. Another time I got on a boat, and a boat called the Kiska. And I had started a crab plant out in Middle Bay on Kodiak Island. And I was checking out all the tanks that I just installed and welded frames so they're all up off of the floor. And I had the water boiling in the one tank, and it was boiling kind of hard. It was vibrated the brackets that were holding it up there. The tank tipped over sideways, filled my boots full of boiling water. And that's some kind of pain you just can't believe. And anyway, I took my boots off and the socks and the first lower skin. I called Kodiak, somebody come and get me. So anyway, I burned feet, couldn't do anything. And I had to find a job someplace because I had no job, no money, no nothing. And a nagging wife at the time. And why don't you get a job? We don't have any money. Anyway, so Doug Patansu comes and says, I need a cook and a deckhand on the Kiska. We're tied up out in Adak. And I said, that's not a very good idea. I don't think I should go. I'm not having very good luck lately. And he said, pack your bag, we're out of here. So anyway, I did. And I thought, maybe 30 to 60 days, I'll come back with some money and I'll be away from the nagging wife. So anyway, went to Kiska, got on the boat, went fishing. Didn't do too good the first trip. Second trip out, we got in some very nasty weather and trying to find a hole in the rock someplace on Hamlet Island, out in the Aleutian Islands. There's 48 Aleutian Islands, and they go for 1,200 miles. And I haven't been to every one of them, but almost. In and out, driving a boat in and out of the islands and the passes. So I'm losing my train of thought here. This boat just came out of the shipyard, and brand new engines, everything was brand new. It was just like, looked like an engine room, operating room. And I was pretty happy to be aboard because it was clean, brand spanking new almost. And it was a wooden boat, about 75 feet. We're fishing king crab. You know, getting a nasty storm. We're looking for a hole that's blowing like 100+ miles an hour. And we find a hole in the rocks and we finally get in this Vasilis Bay. And so we all hit the rack. You're just worn out from hanging on. And it was about an hour later, I could smell smoke and my bunk is right across from his room door. So I rolled out of the bunk and grabbed that doorknob and Doug's hand hit mine, opened up the door and it was blue flame in the engine room. So when you're anchored up in a bay, you know, like 1,000 miles just about anywhere, there's nothing there. And if you don't have a life raft, we didn't have a life raft, and but we had a skiff. And so anyway, the boat's on fire. So I get everybody up, put the sleeping bags in all the inlets so we could kind of stop the oxygen going in the engine room. He hits the CO2, which is an automatic system that turns off, that opens up the valves in the engine room, kills the fire. Supposed to. It didn't. So anyway, we get on the back deck, we go up on the top deck, and up at the top deck is a 12-foot aluminum skiff and an old Gale outboard motor. And the Gale outboard motor is the kind you wind the string around the top, and the gasoline tank is on the top. You may have seen one, but anyway, I thought there's no way in hell this thing's ever going to start. We got the skiff in the water, got the outboard on there, and put gas in it, and getting ready to start it up. And the skiff is sinking. It was full of buoys and line and so forth. And the rainwater had got into the keel, and the keel was about this deep, and it had cracked. Well, when it got in the salt water, the ice thawed out. So the water was coming up through the keel. So I grab a bucket. I told one of the guys to grab me a bucket. So I'm bailing. And he's down there, he gets the motor started, and I'm bailing all the way over. There was one more boat in that bay named the Kevlin K. And we had to get to that boat and see if we could get back over on, take the crew off our boat. Anyway, we got over there, we had to tie both ends of the skiff up because it was going to sink if we didn't. We went in and woke them up and got them engines started, pulled the anchor, and they pulled over alongside of the Kiska. And the other two crewmen were standing on the stern, which is the only place that wasn't burning. And so I jumped off of the boat and ran in underneath my bunk and pulled a drawer out and put my hand on the deck to see if it was still burning. And you could see the smoke coming out, but we didn't know how bad the fire was. So, and anyway, the deck was hot. So there was a package of Long Johns in there, and I grabbed those and ran out because I was kind of running out of air. So anyway, we got on the deck and climbed up on the other boat. We backed away and watched the Kiska burn up, blow up, and sink. And if the Kevlin K hadn't have been in that bay, I wouldn't be here because there's, you know, it's like 20 degrees. There was in that bay in the Aleutian Islands, there are no trees, there's no logs, there's no way you could have built a fire or anything. So that was just my guardian angel was with it. I wore that guardian angel out. So we had, those are just some of the things that I did when I was up there. We had one boat came into our dock and he said, I think I ran into something out there. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's kind of a little bit of a bump. I said, okay. So anyway, I got my gear on, I jumped overboard and went out and swam around. And there was a rock out there that's about 4 or 6 feet high, just like a cone. And I thought, and I looked at the top of it, and you can see the top of it had been scraped off and there was paint on the top of it. So that was obviously what he hit. And I thought, well, I'll just see what I can do. Anyway, I went down there and swam around it, and there was an octopus in there. And the octopus kind of put his little feeler out there to see what was going on. and there was a big hole in there. And I thought, well, there's only one way to get rid of this. You got to blow it up. So anyway, I went back up on the dock and told him what I'd found. And I said, I'd see if I can take care of it. So anyway, I kept going out there to see what I needed. And this octopus kept coming out of the hole. I'd take him crab and give him crab. So I'd reach out, grab the crab, go back into his hole. He came out and run his tentacles around my head and all over me, except he wouldn't touch my tank. His tentacles, as soon as they hit that metal tank, he just backed off. And then he went back into his hole. So every time I went down there, he came out to visit. So that was an interesting part of the program. So then I went up to Fred Brecken's and I said, I need a case of dynamite. And he said, okay, let's go see what we got. So he had some stuff stored in an old military bunker. And he said, well, you can have any of this. And I looked at it and he got the nitro was leaking out of the boxes. And I said, I don't want that. Come on, give me a new box. So anyway, we got a new box of dynamite. And I took it out and I went down and I went out there at night and rigged everything up so I could lower it in the water, lower the dynamite down. And I went back the next morning at 2:30 and set everything up so nobody could see me because nobody's up at 2:30 in the morning and around that area. And by that time, it's starting to get daylight anyway. At 3 o'clock, it's daylight. And so anyway, I got everything set up. The next morning, I went down at 2:30 again. It was on a Sunday morning. And I went down and placed all the dynamite, put the primer in, hooked the wires up, and tried to get the octopus to follow me with a crab. And I went up and set it off. Well, it wasn't much of an explosion, but it was a nice water, like a geyser went up. Right? And the sound wasn't too bad, so I didn't really wake anybody up anyway. On Sunday morning in Kodiak, everybody's drunk and passed out anyhow, so it didn't matter. So Kodiak was known as a drinking town with a fishing problem. But so anyway, I blew the rock up and I went down. I just took off and left because all you could see, the evidence was a few dead fish floating around. And so the next day I went down, checked it out, and the rock was gone, just pulverized it. So it was another successful job. Then that's kind of what I did. Interesting things, you know, I ran a ship around out there. I have a 2,000-ton master's license. And so I spent 5 years running in and out of the Aleutians, all over the Aleutian Islands. And you just run into all kinds of crazy things and people. So one time I got a call. The guy says, I got a net in my wheel. Is Jerry, can you get out here? I said, well, where are you? And he says, I'm out in the ocean. I said, where in the ocean? He says, just off of the south end of Kodiak Island. And I said, okay, I'll see what I could do. And anyway, he had run over somebody's net that they'd cut it loose, and that was what was in his wheel, and he couldn't go anywhere. So I couldn't get a helicopter. There wasn't one there, but a pilot named Skip said he'd fly me out there in a Cessna 185 on floats. And I said, have you ever landed in the ocean? And he said, no, first time for everything. So we flew out, found the boat, and landed in the ocean on a swell, going with the swell. So we didn't have to flip it or anything. Dax taxied around, got close enough to the boat. I jumped out, swam over, cut the net out of his wheel, and he hauled the net back up on his deck. And I knew the guy, his name was Arnie. But anyway, so I swam back to the plane and we took off on a swell and followed the swell like this, got airborne. So there's probably not too many people have done things like that, but that's kind of what I did when I was trying to make a living. My other things was traveling in the other countries, you know, and I put up plants in Panama and Chile, Russia, Korea, And I think the best one was Panama. It was full of snakes. Anyway, that's pretty much it. My designing days are over and I'm retired. Okay, if you got a question, I don't hear very well because I've blown my eardrums 3 times. So
Did you ever experience a tsunami?
ever experienced a what?
Tsunami.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I was on a boat called the Fortress, and I was down in the engine room, and I was the engineer on this boat, so I was pouring water in the batteries, and the boat starts jumping like this. If another boat goes by, the boat rolls. The boat doesn't jump up and down. And it got kind of severe, so I couldn't even hold the can for the water. So I went down past the engine, up on the deck, and looked up underneath the dock, and the dock was like this. And we're having a rather severe earthquake. Actually, it lasted for like 5 minutes. And you could hear the planks popping on the dock. And the boat was down below the dock. We had to get it at that level so we could take ice to go fishing. So anyway, we got up on deck and we were standing on deck and we're looking at the boat harbor, and the boat harbor, all the rocks disappeared. And we turned around and looked at the dock, and we were looking over the dock instead of under the dock. The whole island had sunk 5.5 feet in like split second. And so then we were thinking, well, what's next? And I said, well, I'll tell you one thing we better do. We better get off of this boat or get the boat away from the dock. So we got the boat out in the middle of the channel, and all the water left 35 feet like this in a matter like in less than 5 minutes. And I said, boy, oh boy, when it comes back, it's going to be something to see. And so we're out there for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. And we got a radio call that there's a 50-foot wave that just hit Chiniac, which is the southeast end of the island. And I thought, a 50-foot wave. Huh? So the skipper on the boat, he was up in a flying bridge, which was open. It wasn't a cab over on the top. And I said, a 50-foot wave is coming. Yeah, I heard that. Well, okay, so we're heading out of the harbor. And we're waiting for this 50-foot comber to come to see what's going to happen. And we kept waiting and waiting. We got almost to Gibson Cove, which is about halfway to the airport. And all of a sudden, the boat comes up like this and starts going backwards. And he says, go down to the engine room and jam the throttle, jam that wedge in the throttle. So we had an Atlas engine, and you may have heard one of these way back when. It's got chug, chug, chug. I threw that wedge in that throttle, and it sounded like a locomotive. And it's a 150 horse Atlas. It's 4 pistons about this big around. And this thing was going over time. And we finally got up over the top of this thing. Just as we got to the top of it, we're looking in the 2nd floor of the cold storage building that sits on the dock in Kodiak. Anyway, the wave went uptown and took a lot of boats out of town out of the boat harbor and pushed them uptown. And the second wave went uptown and took the boats back out of town and deposited them on rocks and wherever they ended up. So we went around trying to salvage other boats that were running around loose and couldn't do it. We got one boat tied alongside of us and we ran around with that thing all night long. So after the 4th tidal wave, the 4th wave that came in, it finally calmed down and just kind of stayed stable. So we went back to the dock, which was just about daylight. And a friend of mine that was staying in my house, he was working at the cold storage building, a new system in there. And he came down to the dock and he said he was out at the house and he started to leave and he's running around trying to figure out what to take. He said the only thing he could think of was a blanket. So I grabbed a blanket off the bed, and as he went out to get in his truck, he said the water was already up to the wheels. And as he headed out, Lois, a neighbor, was running up the road with 2 kids. And so he threw the blanket over her and jumped in his truck and went up on top of the mountain. So anyway, the next morning, we said, well, we better go out and check on the house. And so we went out to check on the house. There was no house. The house was gone. The foundation blocks were gone. Everything was gone. All my hunting gear and all the clothes that I had in the brand new washer and dryer that I just bought that day. And had all the bedding and all my clothes in there before I went fishing. So when I get those dried up, go back down the boat, and we're going to go fishing. So I ended up with no clothes, no money, no house, nothing, absolutely nothing. So the Red Cross came to town, and the Red Cross said that we're here to help you people. I went to the Red Cross and asked them for some money, just I could still sleep on the boat, so that wasn't a problem, just so I could get going again. And they refused to give me any money, but they ate steaks every day at the only restaurant in town, and but no money. So I have never donated a nickel to Red Cross, as you can understand why. So.
Gary, thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Have a souvenir pen for your speech. Appreciate it. It was very interesting. Thank you. Yes, he can. And the name of his book is Ice and Fire. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And if you can help pick up, that would be appreciated. Thank you.